There is a moment, quiet, subtle, invisible to the eye, when you pull back, not out of bitterness, not out of vengeance, but because something inside of you has shifted. You no longer chase, you no longer explain, you no longer beg to be understood. You simply detach. And when you do, the people who once took you for granted panic. This is the psychological phenomenon Carl Jung understood deeply, though it has no single label in his collected works. But we can call it this: Jung's law of withdrawal, the quiet reclaiming of your energy that shatters the illusions others built around your obedience. Because when you detach, you're not just pulling away from people, you're pulling away from their power over you. Detachment is not coldness, it is clarity. It is the moment your emotional survival stops depending on their validation. It is the quiet realization that what you were calling love was actually emotional debt, that what you were calling loyalty was a contract of control, and that what you were calling connection was just trauma looping with better lighting. When you detach, you're not abandoning them, you're rescuing yourself. Jung believed that every relationship, romantic, familial, social, is a psychic contract, unspoken but binding. It is a system of energy exchange. Some people give you energy, others drain it. Some build you up, others confuse your identity with their expectations, and you, perhaps unknowingly, spend your life trying to live up to their image of you, shrinking your truth in the process. Until one day, you don't. That day is never dramatic. It is rarely announced. It doesn't come with slamming doors or loud arguments. It often comes in silence. When you stop arguing back, when you stop over-explaining yourself, when you stop trying to fix the unfixable. That silence is withdrawal, not just physically, but psychically, energetically, spiritually. And it terrifies people, because until that moment, they believed they owned a piece of you. They believed your attention was guaranteed, your response was inevitable, your presence was constant. But when you stop feeding the cycle, when you remove your energy from their system, they feel it like a withdrawal from a drug. Because, for many people, your emotional availability was their addiction. They didn't love you, they fed off you. And when the supply ends, the panic begins. We see this everywhere. Friends who ghosted you suddenly coming back when you're doing well. Exes who were indifferent now checking your stories the moment you stopped reaching out. Family members who ignored your boundaries suddenly accusing you of being distant when you stopped playing the peacekeeper. Why? Because you've disrupted the unspoken agreement that you would always be the one who bends. Carl Jung believed in something called psychic inflation, where one person's ego becomes overgrown because of the energy they consume from others. This happens in codependent relationships, in narcissistic dynamics, in workplaces where one person dominates the room. But that inflation only lasts as long as someone else is pouring fuel into it. The moment you detach, the ego begins to collapse. Not yours, theirs, because you were the supply, the cheerleader, the fixer, the emotional sponge. And when you reclaim your energy, you reclaim yourself. But here's the paradox. When you do this, people accuse you of changing. You're different now. You're cold. You've become selfish. Number. You've become conscious. And consciousness always looks like rebellion to those who benefited from your unconsciousness. Let's bring this into the real world. Think about Princess Diana. For years, she played the royal role, smiling, obedient, elegant. But behind closed doors, she was suffering. Her identity was swallowed by the institution, her emotions buried beneath protocol. And when she finally withdrew, emotionally, then physically, from the system that was draining her, the world didn't know how to handle it. The media attacked her, the royals distanced themselves. But something shifted in the public. People saw that detachment wasn't destruction, it was liberation. Or take Dave Chappelle. At the height of his fame, he walked away from a $50 million deal. Why? Because he realized the system was trying to shape him into something he wasn't. He saw how his voice was being co-opted, his message diluted. And instead of letting the machine consume him, he withdrew. People called him crazy, but his detachment gave him clarity, and when he returned, he came back on his own terms. That's the secret Jung knew. Withdrawal isn't weakness. It's realignment. It's not a tantrum. It's not a tactic. It's a transformation. But here's the catch. It's terrifying. Not just for them. For you. Because detachment means confronting the part of you that was addicted to being needed. That was addicted to attention, to praise, to rescue missions. The part that felt worthy only when it was saving someone else. And when you detach, that part panics too. You ask yourself, who am I if I'm not the caretaker? Who am I if I'm not the one they rely on? Will anyone love me if I stop performing? These are not small questions. They're identity-level wounds. And the people around you feel them too. They feel the shift. They feel the energy changing, and they scramble to pull you back. Some with guilt, some with rage, some with sudden affection they never showed before. Because when you detach, you hold up a mirror. You show them who they are without your energy, without your compliance, without your forgiveness on tap. And most people aren't ready for that reflection. So they panic. Not because you've done something wrong, but because you've stopped playing the role they cast you in. And that's terrifying, because it forces them to meet themselves. Jung would say this is the beginning of individuation, the sacred process of becoming your own person, not someone's child, partner, employee, or therapist, but a full human being, with your own boundaries, your own truth, your own center of gravity. And the price of that individuation is detachment. Not emotional numbness, not isolation, but the willingness to stop orbiting other people's expectations and return to your own inner world. It's not about burning bridges. It's about not carrying dead weight. It's not about shutting people out. It's about seeing who's been holding the door open out of habit, not love. It's not about punishing others. It's about finally stopping the punishment of yourself. Detachment is quiet, but its effects are thunderous. It's the calm, grounded no that shakes the room. It's the message left on read, the phone call not returned, the invitation declined, the silence that says, I don't need this to feel whole anymore. And that silence? That's where your power begins. It's where you stop fighting to be seen and start seeing yourself. It's where you stop needing the apology, the validation, the explanation. You stop chasing closure because you become your own closure. That is Jung's deeper teaching. Withdrawal is not the end. It's the beginning of clarity, of personal power, of relationships that are built on truth, not trauma, of energy that flows from your core, not your wounds. But you can't reach it if you're still trying to be everything for everyone. You reach it when you finally say, I release the role. I return to me. You've withdrawn. You've stopped explaining. You've stepped back. And now, silence. What happens next? Most people expect peace, but what they find is turbulence. The world doesn't just let you change your role quietly, because detachment, when real, doesn't just create absence, it creates space. And when you stop filling that space, others feel their own emptiness echo inside it. You were their emotional sponge, their fixer, their source of attention, validation, forgiveness. You were the one who always picked up the phone, who said, it's fine, who made excuses, who showed up even when you were running on empty. But now, you've reclaimed your energy, you've stopped feeding the machine, and now They feel the deficit. They try to pull you back, some with kindness, some with chaos. They use nostalgia, guilt, apologies, sudden flattery. They might call you cold. They might say you've changed. They'll claim you're acting distant. And maybe you are. But that distance, that's not cruelty, that's clarity. Carl Jung understood this inner battle better than most. In Individuation, the process of becoming whole, withdrawal is a necessary rite of passage, not because you hate others, but because you've outgrown the version of yourself that relied on them to survive. They want you to come back, not to your truth, but to the role you played in their story. But you can't, because you finally realized something. If your love has to come at the cost of your identity, it isn't love, it's servitude. When you detach, the old relationships that were rooted in imbalance begin to fall apart, not because you're heartless, but because your new alignment no longer resonates with their dysfunction. This is one of the most painful and freeing truths you'll ever encounter. Some people only love you when you're sick, small, or self-abandoning. When you get healthy, when you stand tall, when you become whole, they don't know what to do with you anymore, because your transformation exposes their stagnation. This is why personal growth often leads to isolation. It's not that you've become too good for them, it's that you've stopped needing them in the way they needed you to. And that scares them, because it means they have to meet themselves, without your energy holding them up. Jung believed that we unconsciously seek others to carry our unlived lives. He called this projection, the act of casting our disowned selves onto others. We envy what we have suppressed. We resent what we once desired. And when someone detaches from us, the projection collapses. We are forced to carry what we once outsourced. Think of the person who always played the helper. Everyone leaned on them. But the moment they stop overextending, people call them selfish. Or the quiet one who always kept the peace. Once they speak up, people say they're aggressive. It's not that you've become worse. It's that others have to confront how much they relied on your silence. You begin to see it everywhere. The friend who only checked on you when you were struggling because your pain made them feel superior. The partner who was sweet as long as you stayed small, but grew distant when you became confident. The family member who celebrated your obedience, but called you rebellious when you set a boundary. You see it clearly, for the first time. And in that moment, detachment evolves into discernment. You stop chasing closure. You stop needing to explain yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. You stop fighting to prove your worth, because your worth is no longer negotiable. It's no longer a performance. It just is. This is the power of withdrawal. You become emotionally sovereign. Your peace no longer depends on their opinion. Your mood isn't dictated by their tone. Your identity isn't shaped by their praise or rejection. And this is where real relationships begin. Not trauma bonds, not cycles of rescuing and resentment, but clean, clear connections built on mutual respect, not energetic dependency. You become selective, not because you're bitter, but because you're self-aware. You choose who gets your time, your attention, your energy, and you don't explain why. Jung called this shadow work in action, because to truly detach, you must face your own darkness too. You must confront the part of you that needed to be needed, that feared abandonment so deeply it accepted disrespect just to stay connected, that confused anxiety with love, chaos with excitement, and guilt with loyalty. You sit with that pain. You own it. You stop blaming others for not seeing your value when you were the one giving it away for free. And from that pain, something sacred emerges. Boundaries, standards, truth. Not spoken with rage, but embodied in your presence. You no longer need to yell to be heard. You no longer need to fight to be felt. Your silence is enough. Because your energy no longer leaks. It flows where it's respected. You begin to realize that the people who panic when you detach are the ones who were most invested in your submission, and the ones who celebrate your detachment, those rare, grounded souls, those are your people. The ones who don't take your energy, they match it. The ones who don't fear your independence, they honor it. They don't call your silence moodiness, they call it rest. They don't demand your attention, they earn it. They don't resent your boundaries, they reflect them back. This is what life feels like after withdrawal. Clean. The drama fades, the noise quiets, the tension in your body starts to dissolve. You no longer live in reaction mode. You respond, intentionally, calmly. You don't chase closure. You become the closure. You don't need to explain why you walked away. You trust that the right people will already know. And if they don't, you let them go, because your peace is louder than their confusion. Jung's law of withdrawal teaches us this. You don't owe the world your energy. You owe the world your integrity. And integrity starts when you stop betraying yourself to keep others comfortable. So if you're in that place right now, if you're pulling away from a person, a family, a system, a pattern, know this. You're not broken. You're not mean. You're not distant. You're becoming real. And when you become real, people who only knew the mask won't recognize you. They'll miss the version of you that performed, that apologized, that explained. But that version is gone, buried, replaced by someone grounded, aware, and unapologetically whole. And that person, they don't panic when others panic. They stand still and they smile because they know what Jung always knew. Your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens. This is your awakening. When you detach, they panic. But you finally breathe.